Hello, everyone. Going to call the meeting to order and do the affirmation that we've agreed upon to do at the start of every meeting to get us in the right headspace here. We would like to thank everyone for their time, effort, and participation in our work before us today. We want to recognize that it is very difficult and important work, and we appreciate and value the perspectives and professionalism that everyone brings here today. Thank you. So next on the agenda, I see roll call.
Scott Margaret's in the room. I just wanted to let you know.
Gotcha.
Okay. Sarah Duckwall is not here today. Ryan Hearn.
Present.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning.
Stacy Llewellyn is not here today. Co-chair Priest.
Present.
Good morning. Kim Schlesinger.
Present.
Good morning.
Morning.
Co-chair Priest. Co-chair Strickland, sorry.
Present by video.
Sarah Merrick.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Margaret is here next to me. Lauren Bowling.
Present.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Trying to find the mute, sorry.
And our newest member, Emily Rivas.
Present.
Good morning, Emily. And Director Stolfi is not with us today. I believe Sean O'Day has an update here in a minute. Okay.
Great. So seems like quorum to me. So we will charge ahead. And welcome, Emily. Super happy to have another labor member joining and the valuable perspective that you can bring us in helping wade through the complicated fun that is work comp. Typically we hold a spot open for any public comments. So would invite anyone that has anything that they would like to contribute to take yourself off mute or step up to the table if you're there in person.
No one in the room.
Okay. Not seeing anyone chomping at the bit there. So next up on the agenda, we have a review of minutes from January 23rd and February 6th. My understanding those have gone out. I saw Patrick took himself off mute.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So we have a motion.
A second.
Second from Sarah Merrick. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstaining?
Margaret is abstaining for the February 6th since she was absent.
Gotcha. And next up, I see department updates starting with Workers' Compensation Board case law updates. Lauren Eldridge.
Thank you, Co-Chair Strickland, Co-Chair Priest, members for having me. The board has no update today.
Thank you very much. And next I see Workers' Compensation Division updates, Terry Watson.
I just want to, Lauren, I did send out your board notes with the information on the email this morning. So everybody should have that. And then I'm going to hand it over to Deputy Director Sean O'Day.
Thanks, Terry. Good morning, everybody. Co-chairs, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Sean O'Day, Deputy Director, DCBS, filling in for Andrew Stolfi here. Last minute cast member change that we had to make as he got a request from a legislator to meet on a piece of legislation. And I'm truly happy to be playing this role here today because my job is to announce our new WCD administrator. As I think most of you likely know, if you saw the announcement last week, Matt was officially appointed as the division administrator. He had been the interim with us since January of 2024 when Sally retired. And he has more than 19 years of experience in workers' compensation industry, with 18 of those years being here with DCBS. We're very excited and very pleased to be able to appoint Matt to this position, and want to take a moment to thank members of the committee and others who may be participating in today's meeting who assisted us in the interview process. It was very valuable to have your perspective, and really, truly appreciate your partnership and participation in that. And that concludes my part. Unless anybody has any questions, I can turn it back over to Terry.
I see Patrick has a hand.
I don't have a question. Thank you for the announcement, and I'm happy to receive it. I just wanted to congratulate Matt on his promotion and to acknowledge what a fine job he did as interim. And so I'm happy with his permanent, being made permanent. So that's it. Thanks.
I will echo that praise. I'm very excited to work with Matt in the new position. Was honored to work with him up until this point as well. And I do want to give a shout out to DCBS for being inclusive of the feedback from members. I know Ryan, participated in part of the interview process, and we really appreciated that opportunity for feedback and that interactive process. So shout out to DCBS and WCD for that as well. Great. Well, thank you. Anything else update-wise, Terry?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Wow, we're flying through. Next up, I see bill presentations. Starting off, Workers' Compensation Division, Matt West, Administrator. Take it away.
Thank you. Co-Chair Strickland, Co-Chair Priest, members of the committee, Matt West, former interim, now administrator of Workers' Compensation. Apologize if I say interim. I've been saying it for so long that sometimes it just rolls off the tongue. And then I think I mentioned yesterday, one of the bigger changes is I now have to come up with a new fantasy football name, team name for next year. The interim forevers are no longer, but it's okay because it was the 7th place team. So I'm looking forward to that outcome next year. So thank you for your time this morning. I'm here to present and ask for MLAC support of House Bill 2800 with the -1 amendment, which, as you may recall, we've chatted a couple times about it, updates the current worker leasing statutes. There was a public hearing a couple of weeks ago in the House Labor and Workplace Standards Committee, and then we had a discussion at the last MLAC meeting related to the bill and the -1 amendments. Happy to give an overview, a brief overview, if needed, kind of whatever the committee wants. There were a couple of questions that we responded to in writing related to co-employment, exclusive remedy, to help clarify hopefully some of the questions that members of the committee had. So you can go into more detail or kind of whatever the committee wants.
I'd like to hear the answers to the questions that were specifically asked last time. So if you have like an overview, that would be of the amendments and the answers to the questions, that would be great.
Sure. So I'll give it, so briefly, again, what we're hoping to accomplish with this bill is several provisions of 656850, which is Oregon's worker leasing law, don't reflect current industry practice, improvements in technology since that law was enacted in 1993. So this bill updates several outdated provisions, terminology, definitions that don't reflect the current practices for professional employer organizations or PEOs. Also helps update current paper-based processes that are labor intensive. It's an update in reporting requirements to allow insurers to report coverage changes electronically via electronic data interchange or EDI on behalf of worker leasing companies and their clients. And additionally, updates coverage provisions to close any existing gaps, and then pave the way to potentially open up the use of multiple coordinated policies. We go through rulemaking
Yeah, right.
for that. That's a reporting piece that we'll get the industry's input on. So the questions, kind of the two main questions that came up, one around exclusive remedy. Does this change exclusive remedy? Does it expand exclusive remedy? So the exclusive remedy statute currently covers both the worker leasing company and their client. And the changes don't change that other than the terminology. So now the exclusive remedy we're replacing worker leasing company with professional employer organization. So exclusive remedy would cover the professional employer organization and the client employer. One of the questions that came up was whether or not, like if you had multiple clients of the same PEO on a same job site, would exclusive remedy, sort of transfer to employees of the other client, which the answer is no. It would, exclusive remedy applies for that worker for their client employer and the PEO, but not any other, contractors on the same job site or anything like that. So does not expand it in that way, maintains the current protections.
So you feel confident that the ELL or the ELA is not going to be affected by this bill?
Correct.
Okay, that's.
And then there was a question related to co-employment. And so we provided some information. This doesn't create a co-employment relationship outside of workers' compensation. It's really what we're hoping to accomplish with this bill is describe the current practice, this sort of administrative employer, site employer relationship that currently happens. And so that co-employment terminology doesn't go outside of Chapter 656. It doesn't expand to other areas of law. Those were the two main questions. If there were any other, if I missed anything or if any other questions have come up, happy to expand or answer.
I don't know if they can see my hand.
Go for it, Margaret.
I guess one thing that I thought we had asked is why, as I understand it, this is going to, the changes are being made because it's going to reflect current business practices of the professional employment organizations. So what I was curious about, how did this become a DCBS bill as opposed to a professional, PEO organization bill, especially when they were there here initially to present the bill to us?
Yeah, thank you. So that's a good question. So the Workers' Compensation Division licenses worker leasing companies or PEOs. So we're the licensing body for the industry. It's in Chapter 656. These are changes that there's another kind of PEO related conversation happening with another agency and other programs. And during last session, that sort of bled together. So, as the licensing body of this industry, we are updating our statutes to line them, to modernize and make them current without getting into the conversation that other agencies are having related to PEOs.
And that's what came to us in 2024, Margaret.
Okay.
Yeah, and so one of the, during those discussions out of the legislature and during the interim session, there was an ask of the department to look at this because of the confusion around the current definition of statute that's outdated. There's this provides workers provision that was put in 1993 that doesn't accurately describe kind of how the industry works.
Okay.
So the legislature asked the department, look at your definition. Does it need to be updated? Is it really, describing what's going on? So that's kind of how it came to us as the licensing authority of worker leasing companies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions on that one? Not seeing any hands. And did you want to clarify just again for everyone what the -1 accomplishes as well, or clarifies?
Yes, I can clarify that. So the -1, so after conversations with several stakeholders, the -1 adds some clarity in some of the definitions. So in the definition of co-employee, we're adding certain specifically allocated responsibilities under the work agreement. So just adds clarification. So clarifying some of the definitions. There was some renumbering that needed to happen because of that. And then one of our small business ombudsmen was able to point out that there wasn't, it didn't talk about limited liability companies. That was an oversight. So we added a new subsection that talks about if the client is an LLC, what happens there. And then updated the effective date from January of 2027 to July of 2027 after some feedback and input from others. So it's kind of just clarifying some of the definitions and that timing.
Okay, thank you. And any lingering stakeholder feedback or questions floating out there, at least that you're aware of? Nope.
Not that I'm sorry. That was directed at me. Not
yeah.
aware. Yeah. We've had several conversations, and I'm not aware of any that haven't been addressed in the -1s or in conversations.
Okay. Any feedback from stakeholders that want to chime in? Not seeing anyone popping up. So then we also have HB 2802 that I see as well.
Yes, yeah, and I can move to that. If that's what we're ready for that conversation. All right. So
and I did. Well, oh, sorry. I was going to say while you're finding that, I did notice that we have adopted our new agenda format where there's the sort of overview, I believe, of the idea is that the overview of the bill will be linked in the first, and then whatever the dash amendment will be linked later. So just wanted to flag that as an administrative thing that we're trying out with MLAC for everyone. Open to feedback on that. But take it away, Administrator West.
All right, so House Bill 2802 with a -1 amendment and then a pending -2 amendment, which I'll talk about here in a minute. This bill is to correct an oversight in 656-230 related to lump sum payments of permanent partial disability awards to injured workers. So when a worker is awarded PPD or permanent partial disability, they can request a lump sum of that award instead of being paid in monthly installments. A 2023 Court of Appeals decision concluded that even if a worker waives their right to appeal the adequacy of the award, the law still doesn't require a lump sum payment because the award is not final by the operation of the law. So our goal is to ensure that when a worker waives their right to appeal the award, they can get the lump sum payment sooner than that, than having to wait that entire 60 days. So the bill would require lump sum payment when the worker waives. So the terminology we're changing is instead of appealing the adequacy of the award, they're waiving their right to request reconsideration of the notice of closure. And reconsideration is the appeal process of a notice of closure. So they're waiving their right to appeal the notice of closure, so they would be eligible for a lump sum payment. And it would also allow the insurer to deny a lump sum payment if the insurer has requested reconsideration or has appealed the notice of closure. So as long as that both parties agree that the there's no appeal on notice of closure, then the lump sum would be awarded. And this is in addition to existing reasons. So during the last, we did submit after the last meeting, we had some additional discussion with stakeholders. The concern was raised that there's that $6,000 automatic cap of lumps when a payment is an automatic lump sum, if an award is $6,000 or less, it's an automatic lump sum payment. So there was discussion on whether or not we should raise that threshold. During those discussions, it was brought to light about that it could create some overpayment concerns. And so after talking with interested parties, that we decided to leave the threshold at 6,000 and then have discussions later related to the overpayment issue. We didn't want that to hold up what we're really trying to accomplish with the bill, which is allowing workers to get that lump sum payment sooner. So the -2 that we're waiting on and should have any other day is any minute or any time now is a simple changing that 9,000 that was in the -1 back to 6,000. That's the only change that'll be in the -2 amendment. And I believe stakeholders that raised concerns at the last meeting are in agreement with that -2 change that we haven't seen yet, the pending -2 change.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from MLAC members? And then I will ask stakeholders as well. Not seeing anything. Any stakeholder feedback or chiming in on this one? I see Keith raise his hand.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank Workers' Comp Division for taking this up and getting it done. And I hope to see the lump sum issue fixed so that we don't continue having the delays for workers trying to seek a lump sum. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Ivo has a hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I just want to echo what Keith said and what Matt said, so I appreciate everybody's willingness to kind of work together. And also want to express a clear willingness sort of from the stakeholder perspective to revisit the raising of that number and how to do it at some later point. But we wanted to make sure, and I think we're in agreement with all stakeholders there, to move sort of the base idea of the bill forward this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other stakeholder feedback or other thoughts, questions, or concerns? Not seeing any at this time. I was going to move ahead with the additional presentation for Oregon Ask Me and then potentially have an opportunity for caucus if that seems to work for everyone. Patrick.
Scott, did you want to take any action on at least the 2800-1 since it seemed as though that was complete, the discussion? Or do you prefer that till after caucus?
I was going to do discussion and then caucus and then we can take action, but that gives folks a little more, I know, a little more time to kind of process and think, if that works for everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to find out.
All right. Well, thank you, Administrator West. We appreciate the presentation. So I see next up, Oregon Ask Me Political Coordinator Odalise Aguilar.
Yes. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Great. Hey, nice to see you all again. Thanks for having me back in this space. I think you all have the -1 amendment to 705, which includes language that says includes the net of payroll deductions. And I think that's the only other change that was new. And then the other couple lines in the -1 are from feedback taken from the Workers' Comp Division to kind of clarify some things. I also want to note that I did receive the analysis from both the division and the national folks. So I think we all have the same information, although I haven't read it for the third time. I definitely did see it come in. So happy to go through the bill again. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that as well.
Thank you. Any MLAC member questions or comments starting out?
I have one.
Go for it, Patrick.
So I just, I received the -1 amendment and the backup information that we requested in our last meeting at 7:20 this morning. So I have not had a chance to review it. I have, that was when I was driving to work and I have had meetings. So I don't know if there is possibly an occasion for you to present the key points in it and then allow us time to digest it. I don't have questions other than it will be new information for me, and perhaps you could share with us what the results are and how it impacts your thoughts on the bill.
Are you referring to the analysis from the national folks?
That would be good. That's one of the things that I know I personally asked about that at the last meeting was, an analysis from a national organization to give a costing of its impact to the system and to workers' compensation rates. So that's an item that I personally had a question about, but all the things that I received at 7:05 this morning are kind of new to me. So I'm open to whatever you feel is key from those materials.
Yeah, and I actually received them a little bit later than you did. So you have had a little bit more time than I have to review all of that information again. I just quickly skimmed through it. But yes, I can definitely do that at another time. I know we're limited on time during this meeting, but happy to go through it. And also I don't it's typical for myself and the person who actually did the analysis to connect, because I also would love to have a chance to speak with them as well.
And do we have anyone? I know the folks from NCCI are oftentimes in the ether on these calls. Do we have someone available that could chime in with some of the higher points there from the analysis?
Todd Johnson told me that Todd Johnson should be joining us at any time now, but and he is with NCCI, but he said John Powell could represent NCCI until he is available. So there's that. And also Matt can help walk through any of our documents, and Raphael, who put together the wage document, is here. The one that says WCD on it. So whatever you have, Scott, just send it. Just let me know and I will hook you up. Okay.
I see a question from Margaret first, and then what I would recommend is maybe since the WCD folks are ready to go, that we have them kind of walk through the basics of the analysis, and then hopefully NCCI folks will have joined us at that point and can walk us through some there. So take it away, Margaret.
Well, my question is, I remember a couple months ago when Mike Manley came to us, and he was a gentleman who worked at DCBS and expressed concerns about the adequacy of time loss in Oregon. And I think that we were all really open to taking a look at this. So, but the question that I have now is, if you could remind me, why was on because you would. Pardon me?
Oh,
I think we had a stakeholder who wasn't on mute, so go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh. So I'm wondering if you can remind me why you're changing the method of calculating the wage rate the way you are, as opposed to changing a percentage from the average weekly wage. And because I think that time loss is like the most complicated, it shouldn't be, but is like the most complicated and overly litigated, or not overly, but widely litigated portion of workers' compensation. And we have all these OARs and, 100 years of case law about how it's calculated. And I'm afraid we're going to see all that go. So why are we calculating it this way as opposed to just changing a percentage?
Yes, I can try to answer that question. I think we have seen, and as the data from the division has also shown that for low income earners, they get whatever is less and are under an assumption that they are getting taxed at a rate of a third. 33% is not what usually someone who makes close to minimum wage or even $20 actually gets. And so when someone is on a time loss benefit, they either don't file at all because they know that they cannot live off 66 2/3 of their wage, or they file, see that they're getting less, and get rushed back to work either uh, on their own so they can actually get what they were making. And they get re-injured on the job again. And I think the just picking a number of 66 2/3, or I could have said 65 or 70 or 90%. But I think the idea behind net is to really match to what the worker would have been making, and take the average of that, so their time loss benefits is as close as possible to what they would have been making if they were working, so that the worker can actually focus on healing and not feel like they're getting rushed through the workers' comp system, as many workers across the state have voiced in various spaces that we've convened.
And if I can jump into, it's my recollection that in the discussions that we've had, that there was some concern of making sure that there wasn't an increase in take home for folks that are receiving time loss. And so this was sort of the approach to make sure that there was a kind of minimum threshold amount that was received by folks that was not an increase in take home pay.
And if I'll just note too, when I spoke to the drafter, he said that net is not ambiguous. He believes net is not ambiguous in statute, and in rule, it's also stated that the employer must provide the insurer with the proper documentation so that the insurer can adequately calculate those benefits. And so the reporting already happens, whether it's, they're doing their quarterly payroll or they're doing their payroll for other things. That documentation for each and every worker exists already, and because it's already in rule that the employer has to provide that information to the insurer, then at least to myself and the drafter and other folks, that is like already saying that this is what we should already be doing. Now it's just a change in the calculation kind of on the back end.
So not seeing a follow-up hand yet. Do we want to go to our friends with WCD to go through their analysis that they presented, or maybe some of the high, takeaway points? Oh, I see Patrick has a question.
I have one other question. It kind of fits here. And one of the thoughts I've had as I've reflected on the bill and on net pay is that although net pay is defined for each individual person, I really feel as though there's a lot of optional things. What you have deducted from your pay, you have flexibility. You can elect how many I don't know, exemptions you put on your tax form, and your federal taxes are adjusted based on whatever you say. And also, you can contribute to a retirement account, let's say, and have different levels that you could contribute toward it. Some have different kinds of withholdings, and some of them are variable depending on personal selections. And so I think the concept of net pay for me is one that is I'm trying to get my arm around. I definitely want there to be fairness, and I want those, people to have, the means they need to live. I mean, that's not a concern, but I think just the definitions to me are ones that I'm struggling with, and it's really kind of a comment, and I might offer that it might be something, I don't know, maybe it's in keeping with Margaret, is something that is more clear, and maybe there could be some kind of, maybe a work group or something of those that could study it further to make sure that the right metric is used to accomplish the goal. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe that was just a comment, but if there's a question in there you want to respond to, please do so.
Thank you, Patrick. I see Margaret's hand again.
I'm sorry, I was just wondering if the ombuds is here to comment on this, or if she had any comment on it.
I
I'm
see
here.
Barbara. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Barbara.
I was just reading WCD's analysis actually as she was talking about it. My concern really was the how complicated it may be in order for insurance companies to calculate, but also how we explain it to workers. I mean, it is. I'm not saying we couldn't do it, but it feels a little complicated, and I'm not sure. Workers like consistency. They like to know what they're going to get. They like us to be able to explain to them this is how it's calculated. In general. I'm just a little concerned about that. And I also had concerns with which WCD presented about saying that it would be for any time loss that's filed after January 2026. I had concerns with that. Are you talking about date of injury? Are you talking about people who are just receiving benefits after 2026? So I had those concerns, but I think I need more time to digest the whole thing. But yeah, I have some concerns, although I want fairness as well, obviously. I just am not sure that this is the best way to do it. And I was actually really curious about WCD and their audit team, and if they've had a chance to look at it and what their thoughts were, because they're the ones that really are the subject matter experts when it comes to this. So that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Barbara. So let our friends at WCD take it away for just the high points of the analysis document that we received, and maybe an answer to Barbara's question of if the audit team has had a chance to take a gander at it.
All right, thank you, Co-Chair Strickland, priest, members of the committee. Again, Matt West, Administrator of the Workers' Compensation Division. So I wanted to walk you through two documents that the committee requested last time that we provided. The first one was the request on if we had information on what other jurisdictions did as far as their time loss rates or TTD calculations. So we provided a publication from the Workers' Compensation Research Institute from 2022. It's a lot, has a lot of states, and I think 6 or 7 Canadian provinces. But that first column will say the basis of their TTD calculation, whether it's 66 2/3 or a different basis to calculate the TTD. And it has a number of other columns as well with different information as far as minimums, maximums, maximum length. Some states have, you can only have time loss for a certain number of weeks. So anyway, just wanted to flag that. It's, I wasn't going to go through it line by line or state by state, but just wanted to flag that we provided that and for your information as requested. And 2022 is the latest version that we could find. But I think it'll help with that comparison that the committee was looking for. The other document that we provided. So at the last discussion related to this bill, we had provided some different wage calculations and what their TTD, what their average weekly wage would be, and then what their temporary disability rate would be. And the committee had asked for us to try to find a way to calculate what taxes would be. And I just want to, so that's what this, if you have the purple, that's our color. So that's why everything we provide is purple. That's why I'm wearing a purple jacket. So the columns that we added, first of all, we added a row for minimum wage, and we chose the non-urban counties minimum wage in Oregon, which, as we talked about last time, that depending on where you live, there's different minimum wages. So $13.70 is the non-urban, which is the lowest wage in Oregon, the non-urban. So that's why we chose that one. And just want to again point out we're making a lot of assumptions with the data. Oh, something happened on the screen. I panicked. Yeah, perfect. It's on the screen. So again, the assumption that the numbers are based on a worker who works 40 hours a week, no overtime, no seasonality to their work. So it's strictly 40 hours a week for 52 weeks. So we have those different columns. The orange columns are the tax rates for each of those wages, and we had two for each wage rate, one for a single worker and then one married with 2 kids, and then based on just the tax rate for that, you would see the weekly take home. And then next to that, we have what their TTD would be currently as calculated at 66 2/3. So you can see the difference between take home and temporary disability. And the last column just shows that difference in wage. Again, as Co-Chair Priest pointed out, this is strictly federal and state taxes. It doesn't include any other, federal and state income tax doesn't include things like paid leave Oregon tax, or if you're in the metro area, there's like a TriMet tax. So there are a number of other smaller taxes depending on where you live that are not included. It does have the FICA. And then also, as was pointed out, it doesn't include any other potential options that somebody may have taken from their gross check as far as retirement, any other sort of withholding. So strictly, if a worker didn't have anything other than their federal tax, Oregon tax, and FICA, this is what their effective tax rate would be, what their weekly take home would be, and then the difference. Happy to give you time to kind of look at that. If you have any specific questions on any of the scenarios or how we calculated that, I'll do my best to answer.
I think I was the one who asked for it, and the total effective tax rate column was exactly what I was looking for. So I really appreciate this. It helps me put it into perspective.
Great, thank you. And then there's second and third page, which kind of show where we got those like effective tax rates and things, just for additional information, transparency on how we came up with those numbers. I'm gonna say we, but I didn't have anything to do with it.
We all see that.
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, after you.
Yeah, so those are the 2 documents, and then I think there was the question on WCD's audit or their position. So again, we have no position on the bill. We're not in support or opposed, just providing data. In our bill analysis, we flagged some questions that we have on how, like, implementation, or have you thought of different things. So there's some questions that we have flagged, just meant for people to think about, or if it were implemented, kind of some of the things that we would need more information on, but certainly do not have a position on the bill, but happy to continue to be part of the discussion, provide any information that we can.
Thank you. And I want to be mindful of time here. So it's my understanding we do have someone from MCCI available to touch base on their analysis as well.
Good morning. This is Todd Johnson with NCCI. I'm Senior State Relations Executive. If I can answer any questions.
So I don't know if you want to just walk us through. We have I believe it's a 4-page preliminary cost impact analysis. If you want to just do kind of the very sort of top line takeaways from that.
Yeah, Co-Chair, yes, I'm happy to do that. Thank you for the opportunity. So this preliminary report was developed at the request of MLAC a couple of meetings back. There was a request for NCCI to do an initial pricing of this bill as it currently exists. So that's why we have it labeled as of February 5. So as you can see in the opening paragraph here, we are essentially saying that if we increase the benefits, we're going to see an increase to the system cost. Because of some of the key terms, that this net of payroll deduction isn't clearly defined at this point. We made a couple of assumptions in our analysis, and those assumptions led us to this verbiage of moderate to sizable increase. And that footnote defines moderate to sizable as between 1% to 5%. Again, all of this is subject to change if we can get more specifics as to which benefits or the total payroll deductions that would go into the calculation. And we provided, again, some of our showed our work, showed our math, and provided a table that kind of gives the committee and the stakeholders some information specific to what the proposed TTD weekly benefits awarded would be and what that cost impact would be. So you can see that it's really the this is, I think I'm on page 3 here. My screen is a little wonky. I guess it's on the second page of the PDF. That worker number 3, average weekly wage at $13.31. Those wage, that slice of the wage for workers is where it's going to be most impactful to the system cost overall, as represented in in the last column on the right. Interestingly enough, the worker 1, if you've got, based on the way the bill is written, you would actually see a reduction in their temporary total disability rate. And then, of course, it would be no impact to the higher wage earners above the SAW. And then through NCCI studies, we have also sometimes seen claimant behaviors change, and we are able to provide some data with that. I think that, historically, the workers' compensation system was providing a reasonable wage replacement, but there was not a goal to replace 100% of the wages, which, as we understand it, it was an economic incentive to help the employee to return to work. Our data does suggest that if that economic incentive is reduced, sometimes there is an additional input or upward pressure on the overall work system costs. That is not derogatory in any way. It is just something that we observe in the population of injured workers within the workers' compensation systems. And I think that the last point that we made in this study is just that because there's some uncertainty as to how to calculate the net wage payroll deductions here, when there is uncertainties, we will then sometimes see disputes, and those disputes can cost money to resolve, which would then put some additional costs into the system for loss adjustment expenses. So happy to address any questions or take any more technical questions back to our actuarial team. But that is our initial preliminary analysis based on our current review of the current bill.
Okay. Thank you much. I see Patrick. I was waiting for it. I knew.
Okay,
Patrick.
all right. Sorry to ask so many questions today, but thank you for allowing me to ask it. Mr. Johnson, I'm on. I haven't read your memo in detail, but I'm on page 3 of 4, and you have hypothetical overall impact 1.1% for a scenario one, which 30% payroll deductions, I guess that means as compared to the 66 and 2/3, it'd be 30% or 70%, or 20% payroll deductions. And those impacts are 1.1% and 4.4. Am I to understand that's the impact on, I don't know, the rate for that class code or for an overall system impact? I guess I wanted to get perspective of what that 1.1 and 4.
That would be the overall work comp system impact. So what we did there is we took those payroll deductions, and just for the temporary total disability rate, we came up with a 3.8% to a 15% value. But because TTD benefits are only 28% of the total losses, those are then reduced. So we're not going to say that that under that scenario one for the temp total 30% payroll, that it's a 3.8% on overall system costs, because the temp total benefits only represent 28% of the system costs. So that tempered that impact down to the bottom line of the 1.1 to a 4.4.
So it would be something like akin to those that pay workers' comp premiums would pay 1.1% more on average, all else held equal, if this bill passes, or 4.4% more. I don't know, just, is that a fair way to think of it?
Hesitating because in general, yes, that is a perspective. It would be, what we would do is we would take, once we have the final enacted bill, we would then recalculate the entire bill once this bill was enacted, and that would flow into our proposed loss cost recommendation that we submit to the Division of Financial Regulation for approval, and the assigned risk rates that we specifically submit to the DFR for approval on an annual basis. But so these are impacts to the overall system cost. It wouldn't necessarily translate dollar for dollar or percentage to an employer's premium.
Thank you. I know it's probably more complicated than that. I don't put you on the spot. I don't know the overall system cost for the state of Oregon. What does 1.1% of it equate to?
I don't know if we put that in this. Don't think we put that in this analysis, Mr. Co-Chair. I'm trying to look quick to see if we might have that, might be able to share that value with you from another resource. I'm a couple of clicks away if you indulge me.
Looking at the historical pure premium rate changes, which may not be entirely the best source, it looks like there's about $1 billion in premiums, so it'd be neighborhood of 11 million. But it looks like there have been 3.2 to 14% pure premium rate reductions for a solid, 12 years now, it looks like.
Correct. We have had, my first point would be there's a little over 800 million in written premium. Just a general reminder here, NCCI collects data from all of the insurance carriers writing more than 1% of the Oregon premium in the state. We do not collect much self-insured or government data. So our view of this needs to be reminded that we only provide this from the insurance perspective primarily. We do have a little bit of data on the self-insured, but not much. So I just wanted to make that a point. And then we are seeing a significant reduction in overall loss costs and assigned risk rates historically in the state of Oregon, as most states are seeing those. That is still trending. I would say overall cost reductions are attributed to a reduction in frequency. There are fewer workers per 100,000 that are getting injured on a regular basis as compared to prior years. And the other contributing factor here more recently is the wage inflation, where workers' wages are increasing. And that actually puts a downward pressure on loss costs because the risk of that injured employee is growing slower than the wages for that injured employee or for that employee.
Those are some excellent points. Thank you. Thank you for putting that in perspective for me.
Thank you. So I want to be mindful of time here. I know we're technically supposed to end in about 4 minutes. Do the members have a problem if we try and hold on till at least 11:15? I wanted to suggest we pop into a caucus real quick for just under 10 minutes, hopefully, and then come back with a potential for action on some of the things before us. Does that work for everybody? I don't want to drop a quorum because we're running over 5 or 10 minutes.
Baba, can you take Margaret to the labor room, and I'll go ahead and do that. Okay.
So we'll do a quick caucus here. All right, Terry, let me know when folks have trickled back in.
Patrick, or Scott, do you know if Patrick's done too?
I believe so. I just talked to him on cell phone very briefly.
Okay. Let me close all the rooms and then everybody will come back. Okay. Oops.
I was hoping, you close the rooms and then we catch them mid-camera pounding their fists on the table, yelling something about their position. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I see 3 management, 3 labor at least. So it looks like everybody should be back.
Okay.
So after caucusing, I want to thank everybody for the presentations today and the participation. I think this was a really productive meeting. I think there were a lot of good questions, a lot of good information. I know we in labor had a good, vigorous discussion in caucus about the position where we're at on this. It seems like our management colleagues have the same. I don't know that any of the bills are ready for us to take action at this time, but we do recognize that we want to keep moving expeditiously through the legislative process here. So I know, the questions that the different folks have, it sounds like we'll be reaching out to stakeholders, to WCD and others, even today, potentially, to get that ironed out so that we are, ready to go and keep moving. We're mindful of the deadlines and aware that building this consensus is critically important for moving things along. So wanted to thank everyone for that. I don't know if there's anything management wants to chime in with, or if I captured the gist of it.
Yeah, you captured it correctly. I really feel like our thought was it was a productive meeting, although we're not voting, and but we did move closer to and got we asked the right questions and felt good, and I thought we had a good discussion, Scott. So thanks.
Great. Well, and I want to flag upcoming meetings for folks. Looks like February 27th and March 6th. Both virtual meetings. I want to double check. I know it has quorum check mentioned.
Yes.
I will be able to make those.
Okay.
Labor folks, thumbs up or chime in.
What are we talking about again?
the next two meetings, we're trying to do quorum checks ahead of time so we know who will be here and who will not be here.
And it was on the 27th
Seventh,
and
yes.
the 6th. right?
March 6th,
Yep,
yes.
I got them both on my calendar.
Okay, great. Co-Chair Priest, I know that you won't be available on February 27th, correct?
That's correct. And actually, March 6th, I have a conflict as well. So, but
Okay.
I apologize.
Do we have anybody else that is unavailable to attend the February 27th or March 6th meeting? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no.
So it looks like we'll be ready for action both those days.
Got it.
And again, I want to thank everyone and look forward to seeing you soon. I will end only 20 minutes late, but I again do feel that we were able to get a lot done. So appreciate everyone's participation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for, I feel like a lot of work went into this, but this